Good evening. This is a quick review of the Trim It 2 case trimmer. I've had this for a couple of weeks now, and I've been running it pretty regularly. And I thought it worked so well that it'd be worth the time and energy to do a product review. What do I like? Well, let's do the overviews. Trims fast. It deburrs and chamfers the mouth and the necks of the brass as you're cutting your brass to length. About 12 to 15 seconds per piece of brass, taking your time. I sat down on my drill press and had 100 pieces of brass done in a very quick, short order. Easy to adjust. The adjustment is very user-friendly. It's very intuitive, and it's not too hard to do with a moderate amount of mechanical abilities. The adjustments for the depth control are spot on. Each one of those hash marks represents 0.02 of an inch in or out, and they are repeatable. If you're off by 5, you go in 2 hashes and maybe a half of a hash, and you're right where you're supposed to be. Quality build. Feels good in the hand. You know, I like to, when I buy something and spend some money on it, I want it to feel like it's well made and not cheap. That's what it is. Uses different inserts for the calibers. I like the fact that these bearings are standardized. I talked to the manufacturer. He said you can press out the inserts, go down to your local bearing supply store, buy another bearing, and push the inserts back in, and you're back in business. So the only part that's really you're required to deal with the manufacturer on for parts is going to be the actual carbide cutter. The cutter that comes with right now is 3-sided. I've used one side. I can't even tell I've used it. It looks brand new still. Things that I've just noticed while using it, you don't jam in the brass, you don't cram it in hard, you just kind of gently feed it in and it will trim. The other thing that I've noticed is the shield here is real nice for keeping brass in here. If you, for example, I would be completely confident taking a handheld drill and this into my living room and trimming brass while I'm watching TV. It keeps all the brass shavings inside here. It's very secure, and that way you get done, you pull it off, and then you can drop your brass shavings. When I'm on the drill press, I usually run it without the protective shield and just run it as is. It has an O-ring here so that it holds the shield on nicely, so it's nice fit tight. What else do I like about it? One thing I have discovered while using it is you want to make sure your brass is dry when you stick it in. This brass right here is lubed, and you can see there's a slight bit of a ring there. It's purely cosmetics. It didn't gouge the brass. This is a dry piece right here, and you can see that it's kind of has a little bit of a ring, but very, very minor. So use dry brass. The other thing I've discovered is the measurements as it trims are usually spot on. The OEL for, and this is 6.5 Creedmore, is right at 1.910. I cut it at 11 just to leave me a little bit of room. This one right here. So that one's at 11. And this one is 11.2. 11.5. So it's very consistent on the trim links. I like that. Changing from calibers takes about 10 minutes. To do so, only thing you've got to do is 2 things. You've got to remove your bushing and replace the caliber bushing for the appropriate caliber you're using. And then you've got to change your cutter. And I'll show you what the cutter looks like. When you unscrew these out, there's 3 Allen screws on the perimeter here. I've discovered that if you leave them, make sure you get them out about 2 threads out of the body, and that way when it unscrews you don't hit the threads here. So you'll notice there's your cutter head. Brass sits in like so, and it spins around and it trims the brass, and that's the large notch is going to be the one that is your inside, and so which is nice if you're loading like boat tail, very low drag bullets, Burgers or Hornadies or what have you. and then you have your outside, and it sits just like that. And all you do is you loosen 2 screws. You loosen the top screw here that holds the dovetail, and this front part dovetails back and forth, slides back and forth. Now you're thinking this has got a lot of slop, but it's not. It just looks like a lot of slop. It's just where its index is off the head of that Allen screw, and that Allen screw controls the depth. Now I've moved it inward, so if I'm going to use 223, it'll fit, and it's all based on the center line of where the brass is. It's quite simple to do. This screw right here, I replaced it with a traditional 440 Allen head, where this had a set screw in here, and the little bitty hole was like a 1/16 Allen wrench. I used these ball ends, and I was having I didn't feel like I was going to get a good bite to hold the adjustments in place, so that's why I replaced it. Doesn't affect the balance or anything of the machine while you're doing it. I would recommend, though, your speeds. Keep your speeds between approximately 550 to 750. That range seems to be the sweet spot for trimming. I've used some other tools that are a little slower and it took forever to trim, and my drill press is adjustable with a tachometer. When I took it over 1,000 RPM, it didn't trim very well at all. It started making a mess, and I started getting a lot of chattering. So 650, in my experience, seems to be the ideal RPM to run this. If you have a handheld drill, usually they have 2 speeds. The low speed settings are anywhere from 550 to 600 RPM. And that does a great job also. And you can, if you don't have a handheld drill, you can go down to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy one for less than $100, and then you can use it for other things besides trimming brass. So that's my review. I think it's a really good product. I've been real impressed in the consistency and the precision of the build and the precision of the brass being cut. So I would be willing to say this is a really great product, and I appreciate your watching this, and have a great day.